As an analog purist who prizes physical media over digital convenience, I am completely exhausted by focus-tested studio products lacking any genuine pulse. Dig deep enough into the streaming catalog, however, and you will uncover a phenomenal reservoir of prophetic science fiction that refuses to hold your hand. These are highly complex visions of tomorrow that terrifyingly mirror our present reality, crafted by filmmakers who actually respect your intellect. Turn off your phone and pay attention. These 15 masterpieces are absolutely essential viewing. Strange Days, 1995. Set in the chaotic final days of the 20th century, this hard-boiled cyberpunk noir follows Lenny Nero, a sleazy ex-cop peddling illegal first-person sensory recordings. Ralph Fiennes delivers a tragic performance as a man hopelessly addicted to his past memories. The plot ignites when Lenny receives a horrifying recording of a brutal murder involving a prominent cultural figure. Tension becomes suffocating as Lenny and his fierce bodyguard, played by Angela Bassett, attempt to unravel a sprawling conspiracy. The film captures a gritty underworld, maintaining an escalating dread as characters navigate a society on the brink of collapse, predicting our modern obsession with viral footage depicting street-level brutality. Directed by Catherine Bigelow from a script by James Cameron, this production is a testament to technical innovation. Bigelow developed a custom camera rig to authentically capture unbroken first-person perspective shots. The cinematography by Matthew Leonetti utilizes suffocating close-ups to thrust the audience directly into the protagonist's fractured psyche. Its historical significance is undeniable, serving as a prophetic warning about digital voyeurism. The pulsating score perfectly underscores the dystopian dread, acting as a grim heartbeat for a dying millennium. Now, to trade these chaotic streets for a grander look at human evolution and artificial isolation, our next film is absolutely phenomenal. In the Blink of an Eye, 2026. This sweeping, ambitious science fiction epic takes a millennia-spanning look at human evolution, connecting the primal struggles of early hominids to the terrifying vastness of the 25th century. The central narrative follows an astronaut enduring centuries-long deep space isolation, accompanied only by an advanced artificial intelligence. The lead cast delivers mesmerizing, agonizingly vulnerable performances, capturing the profound psychological deterioration occurring when human connection is entirely severed. The tension does not stem from alien threats, but from the visceral weight of absolute solitude and the desperate psychological necessity of companion algorithms. It is a meticulously paced exploration of consciousness, weaving multiple timelines into a haunting tapestry of survival and memory. Directed by Andrew Stanton in a staggering return to live-action filmmaking, this original release boasts a history deeply rooted in rigorous scientific research. Stanton bypasses action-heavy tropes to craft an intellectual essay on the human condition. The brilliant cinematography utilizes contrasting visual languages, moving from the naturalistic grit of prehistoric Earth to the cold geometry of a futuristic spacecraft. Its significance lies in boldly redefining the boundaries of streaming cinema. The profoundly moving score acts as emotional connective tissue, binding the eras together, reminding us of our fragile humanity. Moving from the lonely expanse of deep space to the suffocating confines of an isolated vessel, our next aquatic thriller awaits. Sea Fever, 2019. Set aboard a decaying Irish fishing trawler, this claustrophobic nautical thriller follows a socially awkward marine biologist who joins the crew for a deep-sea excursion. Hermione Corfield delivers a fiercely intelligent performance as Siobhan, a scientist realizing they have sailed directly into the feeding grounds of a colossal, bioluminescent parasitic organism. When the creature latches onto the hull and begins infecting the water supply, the tension becomes practically unbearable. The plot shockingly predicted the exact behavioral dynamics of quarantine protocols and symptom denial, trapping the characters in a paranoid, watery grave. The escalating dread stems from the agonizing moral conflict, as Siobhan demands absolute self-isolation, pitting her rational scientific duty against the terrified crew members who simply want to go home. Directed by Nyasa Hardiman, in a phenomenal feature debut, the film's production is rooted in authentic maritime folklore and rigorous biological science. Hardiman utilizes the cramped interiors of the trawler to induce genuine panic, making the vessel feel like an inescapable coffin. The brilliant cinematography by Ruairi O'Brien captures the pitch-black vastness of the ocean, contrasting it with the sickening glow of the unseen monster. Released merely months before the global pandemic, it acts as a chilling mirror to humanity's disastrous handling of biological contagion, leaving viewers deeply unsettled. If you want a thriller focused on documentary-style scientific discovery rather than maritime paranoia, our next film leaves the ocean entirely. Europa Report, 2013. Utilizing stark, found-footage documentary realism, this gripping indie film chronicles a privately funded space expedition to Jupiter's icy moon, Europa, in search of extraterrestrial marine life. Anna Maria Marinka anchors the ensemble cast with a deeply grounded performance as the mission commander, capturing the devastating emotional toll of a journey from which there is no return. As catastrophic technical failures mount and communication with Earth is permanently severed, the tension escalates into a harrowing fight for survival. The plot maintains a terrifyingly realistic atmosphere, relying on methodical problem-solving and sudden shocking tragedies rather than theatrical villains. Characters are forced to make agonizing sacrifices for pure scientific discovery, culminating in an unforgettable final sequence that perfectly captures the terror of confronting an alien ecosystem. Directed by Sebastián Cordero, this meticulously crafted production is famous for its intimate collaboration with space agencies and astrobiologists to ensure ship design, orbital mechanics, and physics were flawlessly accurate. Cordero entirely avoids cheap jump scares, utilizing a fractured editing style to piece together the recovered data. The innovative cinematography by Enrique Chediak utilizes fixed, surveillance-style camera angles, simulating the suffocating reality of a true documentary. The film's significance rests on its unwavering dedication to hard sci-fi principles, refusing to compromise its intellectual integrity. Let's bring the paranoia back down to earth, exploring the chilling consequences of modern internet culture. Monolith, 2023. This intensely claustrophobic mystery centers entirely on a disgraced journalist attempting to salvage her shattered career by launching an investigative podcast. Lily Sullivan delivers an absolute masterclass, solitary performance, carrying the film as she unravels a bizarre global conspiracy from the confines of her modern, isolated home. The plot kicks into gear when she begins receiving anonymous audio clips regarding mysterious, black bricks appearing around the world. The tension is incredibly suffocating, built entirely through phone calls, distorted audio, and her own rapid psychological deterioration. It terrifyingly predicts the escalating real-world dangers of artificial audio manipulation, showcasing how deepfakes and viral internet paranoia spread globally without a shred of factual verification. It is a slow-burn nightmare about the desperate, reckless pursuit of truth in a post-truth society. Directed by Matt Vesely in a staggering feature debut, the production is a triumph of single-location filmmaking, utilizing a razor-thin budget to craft an expansive narrative. Vesely relies entirely on the power of suggestion, utilizing impeccable sound design to build a world of conspiracy without ever showing it on screen. The clinical cinematography by Michael Tessari frames the protagonist within the cold architecture of her sprawling house, visually amplifying her isolation and the profound emptiness of her digital life. Speaking of technological nightmares that deeply fracture personal identity, our next film takes a darkly satirical look at human cloning. Duel, 2022. Operating as a deadpan, pitch-black satire, this visceral thriller follows Sarah, a woman diagnosed with a terminal illness who legally commissions a clone of herself to spare her family pain. Karen Gillan delivers a phenomenal performance, playing both the deeply depressed original Sarah and her overly enthusiastic, physically superior replacement. The excruciating tension arrives when Sarah miraculously goes into remission, only to discover that her family and boyfriend vastly prefer the clone. By law, they cannot both exist, forcing them into a brutal duel to the death to determine who gets to keep Sarah's life. The plot is a violently funny exploration of identity disputes, capturing the profound existential dread of realizing you are entirely replaceable within your own mundane existence. Written and directed by the visionary Riley Stearns, the production reflects his highly stylized approach to dialogue, where characters speak in an emotionless, hyper-literal cadence. Stearns masterfully predicts the inevitable legal nightmares of commercialized biotechnology, portraying a bleak, near future where human life is suffocated by cold, bureaucratic paperwork. The stark cinematography by Michael Reagan utilizes flat, desaturated lighting to strip away all cinematic warmth, creating a dystopian landscape adjacent to our corporate reality, where human life is merely a commodity. If you prefer a deeply grounded approach to theoretical physics rather than cloning, step into our next chronological nightmare. Aporia, 2023. This deeply grounded, heartbreaking thriller explores the devastating emotional consequences of localized time manipulation. The narrative focuses on Sophie, a grieving widow struggling to raise her daughter after a drunk driver kills her husband. Judy Greer delivers an emotionally shattering performance as a woman discovering her late husband's friend has built a functioning quantum machine capable of killing someone in the past. The tension builds masterfully as Sophie chooses to execute the drunk driver, instantly altering reality and bringing her husband back. However, the plot terrifyingly reflects current theoretical physics debates regarding severe butterfly effect consequences. Every hyper-specific change she makes ripples outward, creating horrifying, unpredictable new tragedies for strangers, forcing her to grapple with the agonizing moral weight of playing God just to keep her family whole. Directed by Jared Moshe, the production of this indie gem proves that you do not need massive visual effects budgets to execute a mind-bending temporal concept. Moshe bypasses traditional time travel tropes, ignoring portals to focus intimately on the devastating psychological fallout of altering history. The naturalistic cinematography by David Kruta grounds the high-concept sci-fi in a gritty suburban reality, making the subtle shifts in the timeline feel incredibly jarring, as if reality itself is tearing at the seams. Now, shifting from the intimate consequences of quantum physics to the sprawling tragedy of a refugee crisis, prepare for an absolute masterpiece. District 9-2009. This gritty, tactical sci-fi thriller echoes the bleak displacement tactics seen since World War II, presenting a harrowing vision of an alien refugee crisis in Johannesburg. The plot follows Wikus Merwe, a bureaucratic pencil pusher tasked with forcibly evicting an extraterrestrial population from a squalid slum. Charlton Copley delivers a frantic, physically agonizing performance as Wikus, whose blind corporate loyalty crumbles when he is exposed to alien biotechnology and begins a horrifying genetic mutation. The tension is relentless and breathtaking, blending explosive, brutal guerrilla warfare with deeply tragic character details. It accurately predicts the modern escalation of xenophobia, showcasing the grim reality of mass refugee internment camps run by apathetic, heavily militarized corporate entities, resulting in a masterpiece that is both intellectually devastating and violently thrilling. Directed by Neil Blomkamp in his explosive feature debut, the production is famous for evolving from the ashes of a cancelled film adaptation. Blomkamp utilized authentic, documentary-style techniques and improvised dialogue to give the picture a terrifyingly raw, chaotic urgency. The groundbreaking cinematography by Trent Opalak flawlessly integrates incredibly realistic visual effects into the dusty, sun-baked slums of South Africa, creating an unprecedented level of immersion that changed sci-fi filmmaking forever. Moving from corporate militarism to the terrifying, unchecked hedonism of the ultra-wealthy, our next film is a psychedelic, blood-soaked descent into total madness. Infinity Pool, 2023. Set in an isolated, seemingly idyllic island resort, this hallucinatory thriller follows a creatively bankrupt author and his wealthy wife on a luxurious vacation. Alexander Skarsgård delivers a pathetic, completely unhinged performance as James, who accidentally commits a fatal crime outside the resort's heavily guarded gates. The narrative erupts into a terrifying nightmare when he learns the local law mandates execution, but the ultra-wealthy can pay to have a perfect biological clone created and slaughtered in their place. The tension is incredibly suffocating as James falls in with a pack of sadistic tourists, led by a terrifyingly magnetic Mia Goth, who use this bioprinting technology to entirely bypass the justice system. It is a harrowing, flesh-tearing exploration of absolute privilege and the total collapse of human morality without consequences. Written and directed by Brandon Cronenberg, the production proves he has masterfully inherited his father's legacy of uncompromising body horror while carving out his own distinct, psychedelic voice. Cronenberg pushes the boundaries of cinematic censorship, utilizing violent, kaleidoscopic editing to simulate the dizzying, drug-fueled descent of his broken protagonist. The nauseating cinematography by Karim Hussein uses extreme close-ups and blinding neon to create a visual language of inescapable panic, proving he is a master of modern horror. Speaking of losing one's grip on reality, our next lo-fi gem perfectly captures the modern epidemic of internet paranoia and isolation. Something in the Dirt, 2022. Operating at the bizarre intersection of sci-fi and paranoid comedy, this lo-fi gem focuses on two Los Angeles neighbors who witness a levitating supernatural phenomenon in their apartment. Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead deliver incredibly layered, deeply tragic performances as John and Levi, two lonely, hyper-connected individuals desperate for meaning. Instead of running away, they decide to film the anomaly to make a profitable documentary. The tension is not driven by the supernatural object itself, but by the visceral, deeply unsettling psychological unraveling of the protagonists. The plot accurately predicts the modern epidemic of conspiracy theory rabbit holes, showing exactly how isolated people use fragmented internet data and pseudoscience to construct dangerous, alternate realities, leading to a suspenseful, tragic collapse of their fragile friendship. Co-directed, written, edited, and starring the visionary duo of Benson and Moorhead, the film's production is a remarkable testament to pandemic-era creativity, shot almost entirely within their own apartments using a skeleton crew. They brilliantly subvert the found footage genre, blending cosmic horror with genuine heartbreaking character study. The incredibly intimate cinematography utilizes gritty natural light and chaotic framing to make the sprawling city feel like a claustrophobic prison of the mind, highlighting the dangers of digital echo chambers. Now, from the sweltering paranoia of an apartment to the freezing tactical warfare of a speeding locomotive, brace yourself. Snowpiercer 2013. Set entirely aboard a massive, perpetually moving train carrying the last remnants of humanity, this claustrophobic, tactical thriller is a masterpiece of kinetic action and class warfare. The plot follows Curtis, a desperate revolutionary from the squalid, overcrowded tail section, as he leads a violent uprising toward the luxurious front cars. Chris Evans delivers a heavy, agonizingly burdened performance, shedding his clean-cut image for a man haunted by the unspeakable atrocities required for survival. The tension is relentless, as the rebels brutally fight their way through each distinct, terrifyingly unique train car. It predicts the catastrophic failure of geoengineering and the resulting extreme class stratification within a closed ecological system, resulting in a breathless, blood-soaked allegory for the sheer cruelty of modern capitalism. Directed by the masterful Bong Joon in his explosive English-language debut, the production involved a legendary battle with the studio over the final cut to preserve his uncompromising dark vision. Bong utilizes the train's rigid, linear structure to create a brilliant progression of escalating insanity. The breathtaking cinematography by Hong Kyung captures the grimy, cramped horror of the tail section before exploding into the sickeningly colorful luxury of the elite cars, visually mapping the cruel hierarchy of survival. If you want to experience the apocalypse from an even more paralyzing psychological angle, our next cinematic essay is devastating. Melancholia, 2011. Focusing not on the explosive spectacle of the apocalypse, but on the intimate, suffocating dread of its inevitability, this drama chronicles the final days of Earth before it collides with a rogue planet. Kirsten Dunst delivers a profoundly devastating performance as Justine, a woman suffering from crippling, severe depression whose wedding reception descends into chaos just as the cosmic threat is revealed. The plot brilliantly illustrates how different psychological profiles process the unavoidable end of the world. While her wealthy, stable sister spirals into absolute, terrifying panic, Justine finds a bizarre, calming solace in the impending destruction. The tension is agonizingly slow, relying entirely on the crushing atmospheric weight of existential dread rather than physical survival, resulting in a harrowing, tragically beautiful examination of the human mind at the end of all things. Written and directed by the notoriously provocative Lars Trier, the production is deeply personal, heavily inspired by the director's own grueling battles with severe clinical depression. Trier bypasses all standard disaster movie tropes, utilizing Wagnerian opera and lush, painterly compositions to craft a cinematic essay of pure, unfiltered melancholy. The breathtaking cinematography by Manuel Claro utilizes extreme, slow-motion prologues and shaky, handheld intimacy to capture the terrifying contrast between cosmic inevitability and fragile human emotion, resulting in a profoundly moving experience. Let's move from the moment of extinction to the bizarre biological reality of surviving it. Biosphere, 2023. Taking a deeply grounded, incredibly intimate look at the immediate aftermath of total ecological collapse, this unique sci-fi narrative focuses entirely on the last two men on Earth. Mark Duplass and Sterling Brown deliver phenomenal, deeply vulnerable performances as lifelong best friends trapped inside a custom-built, closed-loop biodome. The tension does not arise from mutants or scavengers, but from the terrifying realization that their fragile ecosystem is failing, and the human race is facing definitive extinction. The plot brilliantly predicts the extreme, suffocating realities of isolated survival and the radical, unexpected evolutionary biological adaptations required to sustain life. It is a surprisingly funny, yet profoundly moving exploration of masculinity, friendship, and the absolute limits of human biology when forced to adapt to a completely sterile, inescapable new world. Directed by Mel Eslin in a beautifully confident feature debut, the production represents a triumph of the independent filmmaking ethos applied to high-concept science fiction. Eslin utilizes incredibly sharp, improvised dialogue to ground the bizarre, escalating biological anomalies in a deeply relatable human reality. The gorgeous, tightly controlled cinematography frames the lush, green interior of the dome against the terrifying, pitch-black void of the dead planet outside, maximizing the claustrophobic dread and emphasizing the sheer miracle of continued existence. Moving from the biological survival of the species to the selfish, unethical pursuit of eternal youth, our next thriller is chilling. Gone in the Night, 2022. When a middle-aged woman and her younger boyfriend arrive at a remote cabin in the Redwoods, they discover a mysterious younger couple has already double-booked the property. Winona Ryder delivers an incredibly sharp, paranoid performance as Kath, who wakes up the next morning to find her boyfriend has vanished with the younger woman. The tension builds as Kath obsessively attempts to track them down, pulling back the curtain on a terrifying, deeply unsettling conspiracy. The plot brilliantly predicts the extreme, unethical endpoints of the biotechnology and anti-aging industries, forecasting a dark, sterile future where the wealthy elite literally exploit the young for cellular rejuvenation. It is a taut, suspenseful thriller that weaponizes the very real anxieties of aging in a society entirely obsessed with youth and absolute physical perfection. Directed by Eli Horowitz, the co-creator of acclaimed thriller podcasts, the production showcases his masterful ability to weave complex, non-linear narratives that keep the audience constantly off balance. Horowitz brilliantly subverts the traditional cabin in the woods trope, shifting the focus from supernatural killers to the cold, terrifying banality of corporate medical horror. The striking cinematography utilizes the isolating, shadowy expanse of the ancient redwood forest to perfectly mirror Kath's overwhelming sense of being left behind by time itself, making the redwood canopy feel incredibly oppressive. Finally, let's confront an alien invasion thriller that is actually a devastating metaphor for modern rural alienation. No One Will Save You, 2023. Stripping the alien invasion genre down to its absolute, most primal elements, this relentless thriller focuses entirely on Bryn, a deeply traumatized, heavily ostracized young woman living alone in her childhood home. Caitlin Dever delivers a staggering, intensely physical performance, entirely carrying the film with less than 5 words of spoken dialogue. The tension is absolutely masterful as a home invasion by extraterrestrial beings forces her into a brutal, terrifying fight for survival. However, the true predictive value of the plot lies in its devastating portrayal of extreme social isolation. As Bryn realizes the nearby townspeople have been assimilated, the film brilliantly highlights the growing psychological toll of hyper-alienation in modern rural communities. It is a breathless, terrifying cinematic experience where the silence is just as deadly as the invading creatures. Written and directed by Brian Duffield, the production is an audacious gamble on visual storytelling, completely abandoning traditional exposition to rely on pure, kinetic action and emotional expression. Duffield crafts some of the most genuinely terrifying biomechanical alien designs seen in modern cinema, treating the invaders not as mindless monsters, but as curious, ruthless anthropologists. The brilliant cinematography by Aaron Morton utilizes extreme shadows and agonizingly long tracking shots to turn a familiar suburban home into an inescapable extraterrestrial labyrinth, ensuring that the psychological terror matches the physical threat. In an era dominated by hollow spectacles, these 15 stylized gems prove that true science fiction remains our most vital, terrifying mirror. They do not exist merely to entertain. They are harrowing, intricately constructed cinematic essays dissecting our collective anxieties. From the devastating ecological warnings of a closed-loop biosphere to the societal collapse predicted by cyberpunk street footage, these narratives force us to confront the undeniable trajectories of our own modern world. They are profound, meticulously crafted warnings about the future that demand to be witnessed before they simply become documentaries.